Hello, I'm Mandi McLeod. Welcome to Straight Talk. In this edition, farm employment, a necessary evil or a match made in heaven? What can we do when it all goes pear-shaped? What does Rugby World Cup and agriculture have in common? And how can New Zealand profit from this connection? And dairy legend Colin Holmes encourages gazing back to grazing for increased profitability. Why do we focus more on production than profit? Joining me today is Deborah Jack, Business Development Manager, Agribusiness Showcase, and Neil Bateup, Dairy Farmer and Chair of the Waikato Hauraki Rural Support Trust. Thanks for joining us. Deborah, you have a very interesting job. What do you do?
It's a role that has got very, very wide scope. We're throwing a lot of balls up in the air at the moment and waiting for things to really settle. I guess the three major parts of my role is one, looking at a regional showcase throughout New Zealand, focusing on Canterbury, Marlborough, Manawatu, Taranaki, Hawke's Bay and the Waikato.
But you're working with the Rugby World Cup.
No, not directly.
Yes.
I have been employed under field days, so I sit down at Mystery Creek in the Waikato. The project in terms of the events that I'm running and the showcases have been funded by the New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, and I work very closely with them. And then myself, I've been funded by the 2011 office. So we do actually sit aside from the World Cup. We obviously know World Cup's on this year. We are using that as a bit of a vehicle to showcase our industry.
So it's about overseas businesses maybe coming over to look at the World Cup and wanting to look at doing business in New Zealand, agricultural business in New Zealand, and they contact you or your office and say, how do we do this?
Yep, absolutely. I've got a very extensive database that I'm working with at the moment, and on that will be basically my matchmaking tool. They're calling me the agribusiness matchmaker. So that's effectively what I do. As the international inquiry comes in, I set them up with connection opportunities to meet with the New Zealand business counterparts. We will also have 2-day, 3-day, the structure on that hasn't been really nutted out yet, but looking at structured showcases around New Zealand in those major regions for people to come on board with. But it is that focus of business to business interaction.
Neil, how smart is this? Using the Rugby World Cup as a forum to bring New Zealand agricultural trade to the rest of the world?
Yeah, hey, I think it's great. It's just being able to have the opportunity to bring people here, or use the opportunity when people come here just to showcase what we do. And what we do is different to a lot of places, most places in the world. What we do is, a grass-based agricultural system, and there's all the technology and all of that goes around that. And we're probably specialists in that field.
Now, agri-tourism, which I know is not what you're doing, Deborah, is very profitable and profiling in New Zealand. Are we concerned about our animal welfare and environmental status, if you like, or the way that we look with all of this influx of visitors? Deborah, what do you think from someone who's involved in bringing people in?
From working, because I'm obviously working a lot with the tour companies that are running agribusiness tours and have been doing that for many, many, many years, the world-renowned tour operators here. The farms are very hand-picked. So in terms of what we are showcasing the best New Zealand has. And I guess in that respect, we've got a little bit of control. But I think, Neil and I were talking about it earlier. It's a little bit about New Zealand farmers taking a bit of responsibility on farms so that the sick paddock aren't on the main road and on the main highway. We all know that animals get sick. We all know they take a while to get right sometimes, and they don't look too flash during that. So it's about putting them not on the world stage. We're going to have bus tours. We're going to have people on the New Zealand roads in abundance over the World Cup, and we do right throughout the year. So it's about being a little bit smart about how you work that, because.
So Neil, you've worked in a number of capacities, like with the Rural Support Trust, and are you worried as you drive around New Zealand that Joe average tourist, who's not necessarily on a tour bus, going to the best that we can showcase, are you worried about what they'll actually see?
Yeah, in some situations I am. The biggest majority of New Zealand farms are great, and people do it really, really well, and that's good. There are a few cases where people don't, and I think we need to remember or remind those people that they do actually have to showcase what they're doing. And as Deb said, look, putting the putting the sick paddock in the front paddock is just not the way to go.
There seems to be a lack of specificity in the Animal Welfare Act. Deborah, do you think that we have got the right attitude when it comes to showing the rest of the world that we are a nation that cares about our agricultural image?
I think we are, Mandy. I think, working with all the corporates that I'm dealing with and all the business people, the ag researchers, the plant and food, all, Lincoln University, all those guys, everyone's incredibly passionate about this year and the opportunity we've got. Mm-hmm. So I think in terms of attitude, absolutely. I haven't spoken to anyone that is saying, maybe it's not quite for us, we don't really care. Everyone's right in behind this. They're really excited. Agribusiness is the only industry in New Zealand that's got a specific person like me running a showcase for them. All the other industries have definitely been well represented and well showcased, but I think it's pretty special that New Zealand Trade and Enterprise felt that our industry was special enough and important enough that we needed a specific person in charge of running it. So it's a huge privilege and a great opportunity for me to work with really passionate people. It's a pretty great year for us.
That's awesome. Neil, I've been doing quite a bit of work around the traps and I'm seeing some really horrible employment contracts. Is this becoming more the norm, that we're seeing people get stuck in positions, whether they're farm owners and employers, sharemokers, contractors, that they just can't get out of?
Yeah, I don't know whether it's becoming more the norm, but I guess the Rural Support Trust, we're actually seeing some of those issues arise. It's not huge numbers, but when they do arise, they're not pretty. I think it's really important that people, when they go into a contract, on both sides, do their homework. Employers look at who they're employing and check that person out. Employees look at the person that they're actually going to work for and check that person out, and actually get some professional advice on the contract that they're writing up, so that it actually does cover the job that they're doing. That there are too many people getting into situations, and in a lot of cases not even signing a contract. It's important, it's law that they actually have to have a contract. So it's important that they actually get that contract in place, get it signed, and actually get some professional advice to say that, hey, that contract is going to provide a win for the employee and a win for the employer. It's got to be there's got to be a benefit to both in there. And if it's done right, it can be really, really good. There's some real good opportunities out there. If it's done wrong and turns to custard, it's not nice for anybody.
Deborah, you've been on a lot of farms in a former life. Mm-hmm. What advice have you got to people that have been caught in the middle of a dispute that they cannot resolve?
My biggest thing, and there were a number of cases that I dealt with over in my former life, is professional support. To get your solicitors involved, yes, it costs, but it's just so important. A lot of farmers aren't trained in the employment law, and it's a completely foreign game to them, and owners and employers, and I think employees, and so to get professional advice, there's some fantastic people out there that are specialising in HR, in the rural scene, is to get support. It's all you can do, really, when it turns to custard.
And Neil, just quickly, it's okay for people to go?
Yeah, absolutely. If it's not working and they can't resolve it, they're better to actually cut their ties and to move on and to go and not be ashamed that it's fallen over, but freely admit it. If they're going to another job, that's no problem.
Fantastic. After the break, Colin Holmes, dairy management legend, speaks out about productivity and profitability. And AgResearch concedes that the mouse may not be enough when it comes to researching early bovine and human mortality rates. What will this mean for our scientific research? Find out after the break. Welcome back to Straight Talk. Recently, dairy legend Professor Colin Holmes shared his views on New Zealand's low-cost production and grazing cows. And how about then apples? Australian Prime Minister Julia Gillard says she will not fight apple exports. Neil, Julia Gillard reported online on Country 99 TV. They're saying that Julia Gillard has said, perfect, New Zealand apples, free to go. How do you reckon it would be if the shoe was on the other foot?
Yeah, it's a very, very good question. Look, I'm sure that we would have to abide by it. That's part of the way trade operations work. And if there's no risk, we've just got to accept that apples will come this way. In fact, we do get a lot of fruit coming from Australia anyway, and I'm sure that our industry would cope with it.
So despite the fact that Australian farmers have been quite grumpy, you think, Deborah, that our farmers, if it was the other way around, they'd be going, yee-haw?
I don't think we'd be going yee-haw, but at the end, it's something we've got little control over, and we know that in the agriculture and the horticulture industry, that a lot of decisions get made up top, and we've got to live with it and make it work, and open up the doors. There's obviously talk about New Zealand and Australia becoming a lot more cohesive and a lot more one nation somehow, but hey, you've got to work with it.
Yeah, New Zealand farmers are renowned for being able to adapt to what's ever thrown at them. We dropped out of the European Union. When the European Union came, we lost butter access, all that sort of thing. We adapted. We haven't had subsidies. When things are thrown at us, it works. We can do it.
Now, you recently have had Professor Colin Holmes on your farm, Neil, talking about grazing systems. Give us a rundown on what he said.
Yeah, he was there yesterday. We had a field day, a smash field day on my farm yesterday with about 50 people. It was good. And Colin was just talking about where New Zealand needs to be in the future. And he firmly believes that we need to reinforce our grazing, our low-cost grazing systems. And, I'm actually a once-a-day farmer and milk my cows once a day. And Colin's got a particular interest around that. And, he's sort of saying, well, hey, he sees in the future that is a low-cost system. Using our grass-based system, we can compete with the best in the world, and that's how we're going to compete going forward. He firmly believes that.
Deborah, what do you think about that?
I totally support it. I think we've seen systems, especially in the Waikato, where I've been working for the last 2 years, where profitability's gone right out the window. The cost of production, the cost of running our farms has gone up exponentially, and it's really, really hurting. So it's assessing the systems, looking at it, trying to look outside the square, doing things different, looking at other options in terms of your feed inputs and your fertiliser inputs. I think that's all really, really important. We don't want to see stocking numbers completely fall away and people go right back to 20, 30 years ago, because what if grass rates do recover? What if things do come right over and we get some good seasons? All of a sudden we've got a very low stocking policy and not the cows to milk, produce the milk.
Anecdotally, in the Waikato, we've lost about a third of our pasture production.
Absolutely.
It could equate to around about a cow to the hectare. Yeah. And Deborah, you've raised a really good point about what happens if we get a flush of grass and how we manage feed quality. Neil, your idea about once a day, it would seem heretical to some farmers, wouldn't it? And some possibly would even be gasping that you've mentioned it on TV, that you're a once a day farmer. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, hey, it's interesting. I can take it, but actually some people can't. And I was actually talking on a bus one day to a farmer, and he says, "Hey, you're the once a day guy." I said, "Yeah, that's right." He says, "Hey, I actually milk once a day too, but I milk some in the morning and some at night, so our neighbours don't know we milk once a day." But hey, it's an option. It's it's something we need to actually challenge ourselves, look at it, and the cost structure around it means that it is a profitable option. And in the end, we're farming for profit. We're not farming for production or for, to reach certain levels, or it's really about a business that's profitable. And if we can make it work with once a day milking, hey, that's absolutely marvellous. And
I certainly know Colin Holmes, as being my a lecturer in a previous life, would have failed me miserably. And I'm sure he did it a few times, Colin. If we had focused on production rather than profitability, and that was 20 years ago, where has it gone horribly wrong, Deborah?
I think what we've seen in the last few years is debt levels skyrocketing. We've seen costs go right through the roof. Those two things alone have really impacted, and they can be really the sole reasons why we've seen farmers in real financial strife. And I think too, when you get into that position, and it's right across the industries, it's not just dairy, it's right across the board. When you get into that downtrodden, it's very hard to look up. It's very hard for a lot of these guys that can be isolated because of location to look up and actually see things at a different light and see things at a bigger picture. I think the use of the support trust, the use of farm advisors, the use of your professional networks has just become so much more important. We're running very, very complex multi-million-dollar businesses. Farmers need to really take that on board and realise they need help.
Neil, just recently, the Straight Furrow ran an article talking about approximately 30% of food prices are coming back to producers. And we're hearing that producers themselves, the farmers, are struggling to make ends meet. What do we need to do here? It doesn't seem like rocket science. Why is it so hard?
Yeah, I don't know. It's disappointing when you see milk prices as high as they are when you look at what we actually get paid for milk. And I'm sure it's right across the board, meat products and wool and everything else. I think people need to realise that the farmer at the bottom end actually has to make a profit and still be there. And if they screw the system too hard, their supply will disappear. And it's really, really important for the whole chain to know that, hey, we need to survive at the bottom end. Mm-hmm. And it's been difficult out there with the seasons we've had the last 3 or 4 years. It's actually been really difficult. Even with high milk payouts this year, it's going to be difficult for a lot of people to actually make a decent job of it this year, because there's been a lot of feed costs and everything go into the system. It's.
Now, it's interesting, Deborah, moving completely onto a different topic, but I think it's related. Agri-Research are wanting to move away from using mice for embryo research and use bovine embryos, because they say it more closely mimics that of the human embryo. And they also believe that they can get a better handle on what's happening with reproductive fertility in our dairy cows, which we know is a really big issue. Genetic engineering, for or against?
I think personally, it's got its place. I seriously do. I definitely think it's got its place. I am not a scientist in any stretch of the imagination, and so qualification of that is hard. I think it's got its place. We've got to be very careful of how far we go with this. I know there was huge controversy over what was called the blood job with dairy cows, and I think it does have its place. In the end, animals are on here to feed us and to provide a primary ingredient. Now, if we, from a farming background, I'm completely au fait with all that. But I know someone who doesn't understand the farming system quite so well and is not from a farming background can just look at that and go, that's just horrific. Well, how can you do that? But I guess it's that longevity of the industry. It's the sustainability of the industry. If we can help within disease and reproductive issues and things like that, that can only be but better for the industry. But I think it's a very, very difficult area to go into.
It was a bit of a hospital pass, really, wasn't it?
It was, absolutely, Mandy, thanks.
Neil, is there really a fundamental difference between using mice and bovine embryos?
No, absolutely not.
They're both an animal.
They're both an animal. We need to keep doing the research. There'll be parts of it that we throw away, or maybe we don't use any of it, but there'll be opportunities to actually use that research to actually help people, diseases in people and that sort of thing, and in animals. So I think we need to keep doing the research, and then we need to use that very, very carefully as we go forward. But if we don't actually try, we never get there. So, it's cautiously forward.
Cautiously forward.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Coming up after the break, we ask Deborah and Neil what or who has pushed their buttons this week. Will it be a rant or will it be a rave? We'll reveal all after the break. Welcome back to Straight Talk. It's time now for our weekly rant or rave. Neil, I know you've got a goodie for us.
Yeah. It's not this week, but it's overtime in the Rural Support Trust. I get brassed off when people actually try and rip people off in a situation like a drought or something, where silage bales go to $200 and farmers are trying to profiteer, or people selling feed are trying to profiteer on the situation. So that really annoys me that they can sort of use the thing to their advantage. It's somebody else's disadvantage to their advantage. I get brassed off with that.
It really pushes my buttons too.
Yeah.
Have you got a rave for us?
Yeah, the rave is actually the opposite of that. Those people who actually do offer feed and sometimes silage bales and that sort of thing free of charge or for the cost of the cartage, and there are still some very good people out there who do those things, and that's really neat to see. But that's the direct opposite of the others. So yeah, thumbs up to those.
Just like a little bit like a gentleman's agreement, Neil. It takes two gentlemen, doesn't it?
Yep, absolutely.
Deborah.
I've got no real rants at this stage. From recent history, I think I've got a massive rave of what a really exciting year we're facing into. We've got record commodity prices. We've got the industry in a really good space right now, and we've got an amazing opportunity coming up at the end of this year to really show off to the world just how awesome we are at agriculture. We've got world-leading technologies. I'm talking with the most exciting, innovative people in my job, which is just really exciting for me. And so I think, this year is a big thumbs up for the New Zealand agribusiness industry. We've got a huge future, and we've got to realise that we are the backbone of this country, and we've got to be really proud of it because we do some really great stuff.
Oh, Deborah, I feel really awful having a rant now after that. But I have got a rant. Why is it too hard for some farm owners to provide staff with adequate conditions? Houses that don't have potable water, poor insulation, holes in walls. What is going on? Where is humanity here?
Yep. It is a big issue, and I think it's something that you see right throughout the country and at different levels. Some do it really well, and some look after their staff exceptionally well. But there are some awful cases out there, and I think it's sad that it's actually impacting on the future of people's careers in the industry. I think that's where it's at.
So what do we need to do? How do we highlight those people on both sides of the fence that are doing an amazing job and make more out of those people that are just mongrels?
Ethically, how do you do it right? Don't know. It's
difficult. That word of mouth thing, that research when you're looking at jobs and that sort of thing, the research and finding out about where you're going and what things are like, and just making it real hard for those bad people to actually get people to work for them. And
let's not forget those employees that go out there and actually deliberately do things to get a pay out of the job.
Yep.
So it is on both sides.
Absolutely, it is on both sides. And it's important that those people, it's actually important when people are doing reference checks on people that if you're asked to give a reference, you're actually straight and you're honest and you tell people exactly what you're dealing with. Don't write somebody up because you want them off your farm and you want them to go somewhere else.
Be honest.
Just be honest. And if there's some honesty in the whole system, it's got to come right.
Yeah, I think it comes down to supporting and helping. I mean, a lot of guys, farm owners in those situations, that staff thing is something quite foreign to them. Managing people. I remember articles written around the East Coast when I was living in the Hawke's Bay, and they were all seen down there, and the biggest issue was staff because they're not used to that. They're used to dogs and animals. They're not used to having to manage people, and that's a whole different ball game for a lot of people, and it's not easy. In any industry. So I guess it's providing the right support and encouraging the guys that are really struggling in both sides of the story to go past that and support on how to get better and provide better circumstances.
And if people actually know that they have difficulty in that employment scene, actually get some advice from somebody who is an expert in the area to actually help them through the process so that they can come out of it better and put systems in place so that they can actually deal with it without actually having a problem.
And if people do need help, they can obviously contact the Rural Support Trust on 0800 Rural Help. That's help with a P. That's right, Neil?
Yeah, absolutely. 0800 787 254.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. That that wraps up the latest edition of Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Furrow. I'd like to thank my delightful guests, Deborah Jack, Business Development Manager, Agribusiness, and Neil Bateup, Dairy Farmer and Chair of the Waikato Hauraki Rural Support Trust. And thanks to you too for watching. Remember to check out my blog online at country99tv.co.nz. I'd love to hear from you, good or bad. Catch you next week, and in the meantime, keep on talking straight.